right. Well, good afternoon. Welcome to folks in our audience and those that are watching via streaming or looking at our recording later. I'm Wayne Mays of the Fayetteville Chamber of Commerce. It's a public service that we provide in election years, an opportunity for the candidates running for office at various levels, city, county, and state, to connect with the voters. That's you folks out there. First one will be approximately 1 hour. We'll do our best to stay on time and be as close as we can to the schedule. Gentlemen, I will tell you, you both received, I hope, instructions to review, so you should be familiar with what we're doing. You each give a 5-minute opening statement, and then at the end you'll give a 3-minute closing. Then we'll be asking the questions, and as I ask these questions, we'll alternate in who gets to answer first. And that seems to be a very fair way to do it. Then at the close, the one that starts with the opening will be last in the closing. So everything that we can possibly do to make it fair and equal. I'll be keeping time, and our objective is to stay within a time frame. So if you're replying to a 3-minute question and you stop anywhere but from 2:30 under, there'll be no problem. We'll move to the next question. If you get to 2:30 on a 3-minute question, I will give you a signal that you have 30 seconds left to answer. So don't feel rushed or hurried. It's just to let you know that you have 30 minutes to wrap up.
Sure.
If by some chance you have an extremely good, thorough answer that takes more than 3 minutes, I'm still going to need to ask you to stop at 3. We have 8 prepared questions. 7 came from our chamber staff, and we did get 1 from the public, which we've included. So we're doing our best to take questions from the audience, from the citizens. Earlier, we don't have an opportunity for you folks in the audience here to ask questions because we're just not quite sophisticated enough to handle that and review the questions and then come back. Mr. Clark has arrived. Steve, I'm just giving these gentlemen their opening instructions on the process. Are you ready to step up?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I will be doing the timekeeping for you. And I've told them that on each of their questions as they're answering, when they have 30 seconds left, I'll give them a sign. I'll be right over here. Thank you. Excuse me.
Thank you, Wayne. I appreciate that. Have you ever done a really stupid thing? Well, I might put my hand up. Okay, thank you, because I now feel a little more at ease telling you this story. I ran home right after lunch to do a couple things, and I have battled having a skunk in my garage, and the skunk has proven to be quite a bit smarter than I am.
Yeah.
And in the process, I think I've gotten rid of him. I went out into my garage in a hurry because I wanted to be here, and I stepped on the part of a shovel. Thank you very much, and it flew up and hit me in the face. And my face is not as elastic as it once was. So I apologize for being a little late. I apologize to you candidates for making you wait. Thank you so much for being here. As Wayne has said, this is the Fayetteville Chamber of Commerce opportunity to bring to you a candidate forum and let you hear from our candidates. He has explained the rules to you as the way we will go. All right. Well, we've got questions, and so before we get into the questions, we get to have opening statements. So, Mr. Deakins, will you give the first opening statement?
Sure, I'll be proud to. First, I want to just thank everybody that's here and listening from taking some time from your lives and getting a little bit familiar with your local level candidates so that you can make good choices in this election. Just a little bit of background on me. I live in Sonora, which is up east of Springdale. I'm currently a Justice of the Peace for that district. I currently chair the Finance and Budget Committee for the Washington County Quorum Court. Me and my wife make our home there with our 2 sons, Hudson and Marshall. I'm a CPA by trade. I've had a public practice doing taxation and tax consulting for the last 10 years, and so that's taken up my time there. And what I want everybody to realize is this election, probably more than ever in Washington County, will be about growth and change. And who do we want leading that growth and change into the future? And there are some very big things I think that are going to be very important about this job and the gentleman who takes it in this next term. The first of all being, we have to be able and prepared to tackle issues and challenges, both known and unknown. As we've already seen the tremendous growth in our region, we can see some of the challenges that we face, but inevitably this tremendous growth is going to bring things that we have not yet foreseen. And so we need to elect somebody that we can entrust to face those challenges head on into the future. The second thing I'll say is the next county judge is going to have to be a great collaborator and problem solver. All of our challenges that we're facing in this growth hit us at every level of government, whether that be our local levels in terms of our municipalities, at the county level, or at the state level. There's even things that are going to touch in the federal level. So I want our next county judge to be a great collaborator with those individuals, those leaders at those different levels, so that we can come together and address the problems in the most appropriate level using the most efficient forms of government. And so that's one of the tenets that I'm taking into this, one of my main goals. And the next thing is we need a county judge that's going to be a problem solver, because we've already seen that in the last few years with our growth. Challenges come at us. Some of the challenges don't have a recipe that we've addressed before in the past. They're new and unique challenges for this region, and we're going to need somebody that can sit back, look at the facts, and make the best decision for Washington County as a whole so that we're progressing this region for everyone involved. And then finally, I would say that I want a county judge that's become familiar with the resources and the challenges and the problems that we're seeing so that we can take action on day one when that county judge takes office. Washington County is seeing so many changes, and there's so many things coming at us that we have no time for a learning curve in that office. We need somebody that's going to come in, collaborate, problem solve on day one. I think we've uniquely positioned ourselves to do that. I like to say that through our service, we come at this as a family. I have the great support of my children and my wife. And what we've seen is we can uniquely position ourselves to both be familiar with the challenges of the county, but also bring a new, fresh perspective from our lives and from our careers to come in and bring some of that problem solving. The number one cornerstone to next successful judgeship, I believe, is fiscal responsibility and accountability to the citizens. If we're meeting these challenges of growth that are going to challenge us on infrastructure, they're going to challenge us on personnel within the county, we need to be sure that we're being absolutely great stewards of our dollars. And through being that efficient is the way we're going to be able to meet these challenges in the growth we're seeing as the county. The next thing is a big tenet is going to be public safety. We see that now. We're going to have to continue to invest and make sure that our sheriff's department and our police departments have the resources that they need, but also I'm a big proponent of the rural fire departments. We have a fire department where I'm at. Those people are major leaders in their communities, and they're the first call for so many people who need help, and we want to make sure they have those resources. And then, of course, one of the primary responsibilities of judge that's going to be touched on as we grow are roads and infrastructure. And we've made some good investments in our road department in the last couple years in the county. We need to continue to do that. We need to be very proactive and not reactive in the terms of the growth that we're seeing so that we know where we can invest our resources to make them the best for Washington County. And only by doing all these and bringing these all together do I believe that we can reach the success that is totally capable for Washington County and make it a great place to live, work, and raise a family. And with that, I'll yield. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Moody?
All right. Thank you to the Chamber and the library for hosting. Thank you to my opponent for being here. I think it's important that if we're asking the public for a job, I think it's important that the public gets to hear from us as much as possible. Thank you all for coming and listening and being engaged, and those at home that are listening, thank you very much for being engaged. This is an important part of our democracy. I just came here from a luncheon on the other end of the library, the Peace at Home Courage Luncheon, and that's one of many countless nonprofits that are doing great work right here in the county. The county has received $50 million of COVID relief money that was intended in part to be delivered to nonprofits, putting in the work for nonprofits such as that, and providing a lot of other services and helping the community recover from the pandemic. And unfortunately, the county has yet to deliver on that. I'm a teacher with a business background. I actually attended the University of Arkansas, Walton College of Business grad, Human Resource Management. And I was in the HR field for a couple of years, and then I was a nonprofit executive for a little while, and then I got bit by the teacher bug. My parents are educators who also live in Fayetteville, and I guess I finally decided, I need to follow in those footsteps. As it turns out, my father was also a school superintendent, so I guess administration's also in my blood. I certainly hope so. My wife, who's a transplant, so I'm from Arkansas. I was born in Washington County, lifelong Arkansan. My wife is from New York. I think Washington County is a perfect combination of people who have lived here for years, if not decades, if not generations, as well as people that are brand new to here. And I think working with the people who are here and just got here, bringing those people together, I think Aaron and I have a pretty good relationship, a pretty good marriage, and I think that we as Washington County need to have a good marriage like that, where we talk to each other, where we listen to each other. I also have 2 kids who are in high school or moving on with their lives and ready for bigger and better things. I'm excited for them for that. Some of the issues, I already mentioned one about COVID relief money. It sounds like Mr. Deakins and I actually agree on a couple things. Growth is going to be a huge concern for whoever takes the job. And when we think about growth, we think about access. And when we think about it, here in Washington County, as people are being priced out of cities and into the county, access back to those cities, back to jobs, back to services is very important. That includes county roads, which a huge part of the county judge's role is county roads. So we need to be investing more in that access and those services. As it stands now, we're investing twice as much in jails as we are on county roads. I think that should probably be flipped. I think that people need to be able to get to where they need to go, and I think that improves all of our quality of life. I also heard collaboration. Well, as it turns out, I'm actually running on collaboration. I've wrapped my whole campaign around purple, bringing red and blue together for common ground and compromise. I really, truly believe that we as neighbors have more in common than we have that divides us. And I think we need to operate from that common ground and work together to find common sense solutions to all of our issues. I think we can do that, and part of doing that is bringing community members in, allowing them to sit at the table and express their concerns, express their experience and expertise, because the fact of the matter is I don't know everything. I recognize I don't know everything. None of us do. But there are people in our community that are available and can be resources for us. I want to bring those conversations and those voices in because I think it's important for all of us. I mentioned I'm a teacher. Actually, the last 8 years I spent teaching at the County Juvenile Detention Center. So that is some of my county experience. So not only do I have HR background, speaking of HR, sorry I'm bouncing around just a little bit, but HR. So my background tells me that a happy staff is a happy customer, right? This being a chamber event, businesses, we know that a happy staff makes a happy customer. In my mind, for the county, a happy staff makes for a happy county, makes for happy constituents. And I have come to the realization this year that morale is at an all-time low. Over the last couple, people who have been working with the county for decades say right now has been a difficult, trying time. And there are multiple departments that have become dysfunctional in recent years. And that's due in large part to a lack of leadership. I plan to turn that around and use my HR experience to try to work with these people, put the right people in the right positions. Thank you. As a teacher working at the County Juvenile Detention Center, I recognize that though Northwest Arkansas, Washington County is a great place to live, it's not great for everybody all the time. And I want to bring those voices, those concerns, and I want to represent all of Washington County. Not just those who vote for me, not just those who donate to my campaign, but every single person that resides in our county. Because I do believe it's the best county in Arkansas, and I only want to improve that. We should be a leader in the state. Thank you very much.
Thank you both, gentlemen. And now we'll go to questions. And I think as it was explained to you in the rules, we go by alphabetical order, but we'll flip at the end, closing statements. And I'm going to go back and forth between you on the questions. So the first question is, why did you decide to run for this position, Mr. Deakins?
Well, I think you can look back at, you live your life and then you reach this point to where you hold that newborn baby for the first time, right? And then your whole life changes. And maybe for the first time, you're not thinking about yourself anymore. You're thinking about the future and you're thinking about the future generations. And I think that experience both inspired me and my wife to start looking at our lives and saying, now what are we doing to ensure this next generation, our sons or your grandchildren or kids, so many of us out there know those young people have the same opportunities that we had growing up. And so that became critically important to us. And of course, me seeking this job from the taxpayers and the voters comes directly from my service on the Quorum Court. you get involved, you can see certain things. And what I like to say is I think over the last 4 years that we've served, we've become more frustrated and more motivated to get in and help and pitch in where we can and bring our skill sets to local government. And I think that's incredibly important. I think what any government entity needs to realize is it's only as good as the people who can come in and help out. It's much like we hear the church. The church is only as good as the people make it. Well, our government is the same way. It's only going to be as good as we as all citizens can get together, work together, and make that government successful. And so that's why we do it. We want to make sure and ensure that we have those, once again, those opportunities for future generations that we were served with. And then also we can see that with this growth and these opportunities, we have a level of success that we could reach. And we want to make sure and reach that highest level of success. And we believe we're uniquely positioned both with our private experience as a CPA. I want to come in and do some great things with the budget. I think we've already done some great things with the budget on the quorum court over the last couple of years. A lot of that progress comes slowly, which frustrates me coming from the private business sector. But we can do more. We can continue to add fuel upon that fire. And so that's what we're here to do. I want to be, once again, I touched on it in my opening statement, but I want to be a collaborator. This county is so diverse. When we look at it, you can be in Fayetteville or Springdale, and the needs of those citizens are very unique. And then you go to Lincoln, Prairie Grove, you go out to Goshen, and those citizens' needs are very unique. So I think it's going to take somebody pretty dynamic with a dynamic background to bring those needs together, prioritize those from a county perspective, and take care of the ones we can. And that's what I say really drives me.
Thank you, Mr. Deakins. Mr. Moody, why did you decide to run for this position?
Coincidentally, J.P. Deakins and I started attending quorum court meetings at the same time, January of 2019. So for 4 years, we've both been going to those meetings and have both been frustrated with what we've seen and what's happened. As county judge, I would preside over the quorum court. I would not have a vote, but I would have veto power. I truly believe that my election would be a mandate by the voters of Washington County to tell those 15 members of the quorum court, now is time to work together. No more time for bickering and bringing national politics into it, but now is time to focus on the service and the issues of the county people. I have not seen that. Earlier was mentioned fiscal responsibility. As it turns out, I am the fiscally responsible candidate in this race. As many of you might know, there is a jail expansion issue on the ballot this November, as well as our election. There's a bond issue asking you, the taxpayers of Washington County, for an $1/8 of a $1 billion tax, or as I like to call it, $1/8 of a $1 billion Band-Aid, to expand the county jail, to triple our incarceration rate, which is already higher than the national average. The thinking is, well, our population's growing, so obviously we need to expand the jail. We're expanding schools, we're expanding roads, it makes sense to expand the jail. And the fact of the matter is, yes, if we continue to do the same things, sure. The good news is, the quorum court back in 2019 paid for an independent study by a nationally recognized firm, the National Center for State Courts, to say, we are dealing with overcrowding in the jail, what do we need to do? So they spent a year researching and publishing their findings. And in August of 2020, we received the findings, and it said, this is the playbook, this is the blueprint. If you do all of these things, if you do this, 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 and this, and this, you will not have to expand the jail. If you do not do these things, the most expensive, least effective thing is expand the jail. My opponent, who is chair of the Finance Committee, has yet to bring any of these alternative solutions to the quorum court. I will be doing those next year. I won't wait for a couple of years. I will be doing those immediately. And if we implement those programs and we still find that we need to expand the jail later, I'll be the first to admit it. Also, the good news is we do have unappropriated reserves of $57 million next year in our budget. We can use some of that money, not all, we should save some of it for a rainy day, but we could use some of that money to jumpstart some of these services now. And those solutions and opportunities have been available to us for 26 months, and there's been no movement on that. That is a lack of leadership. That is a lack of vision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, our second question would be, first with you, Mr. Moody. Describe your experience working with the community of Washington County, and how would you describe your leadership style?
Another nonprofit I'm involved with, Circles NWA, and I'm just brand new to it, re-taught me this phrase, step up or step back. Some of you may have heard make space or take space. So it's an opportunity to step up when that leadership is needed, and an ability to recognize when it's not. I feel like I've always had that inherently in me. As county judge, when I oversee my staff, I'm not going to go in on day one and say, this is what you need to change. You need to do this, 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 and this, and this. I'm going to say, how can I help you succeed? What do you need from me? I'm going to be a resource. I do not see myself as those people's boss. I see the county as those people's boss, as well as my boss. My boss is the voters and residents of Washington County. My work in Washington County and the community at large has been extensive. I've worked with many nonprofits, mostly children-serving nonprofits, but also food insecurity nonprofits, also safety nonprofits, a lot of things. My time at the County Juvenile Detention Center, I had the opportunity of, let me back up. I started teaching there in 2014, and I recognized a lack of equity with how kids in the system were being served. There was a diversion program that had a certain class of kids in it, diversion program being opportunities for keeping kids out of incarceration. And in 2016, we were busting at the seams at JDC. Our capacity at the time was 36, and we had around 40 kids in JDC. So in other words, there were kids, just like at the jail, sleeping on mattresses on the floor. I said something's got to give. I took it upon myself to start another diversion program, to take some of the moderate to high-risk kids who have been kind of cycling in and out of JDC over the couple of years. And I said, these kids' behaviors aren't changing. Let's provide them with positive outlets. And I helped found Crew 885. And what that is, and at the time it was rival gang members getting together. I was getting them in the same room and having them work together. And again, going back to quorum court, I think if I can do that with those kids, I think I can do that with the quorum court. I can bring people together and work together. And it's thankfully it's changed over the years, but it's thriving now. It's still a very strong program, but summer programs, weekend programs, lots of opportunities for these kids to find public outlets. And I've been fortunate over the course of the last few weeks to run into some of my former students who they're excited I'm running. They appreciate the talks that I've had with them in the past. They see, even from that teenage vision, that I have vision for them, and I want to improve their livelihoods, and by doing that, improve it for all of us. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Deakins, what do you believe to be the largest challenge facing Washington County in the next 2 years?
Well, absolutely, it's going to be our criminal justice system. I mean, we've seen that. We have a major issue on the ballot in public safety. How do we keep doing that? And it's not just our law enforcement community. I touched on a little bit in my open. It's our fire departments and first responders. How do we keep those people supplied to do the jobs that we can? And I think the way you're going to tackle those things is you can't manage or change what you don't measure. And that's what we really have to do as a county, is we have to come in and start measuring what we want to measure to help change that. And the jail is one of the biggest things that we have, the biggest challenges that we have. But it's not just the jail. And I get asked so many times now on the campaign trail, do we need a jail expansion, or do we need programs, sentencing alternatives, and things of that nature? And the hard answer is that we need both. We have a jail expansion on the ballot that will ribbon cut at best 2 to 3 years down the way. And in this meantime, we're going to experience great expansion in that time. Also, we do have the NCSC study that's given us a roadmap. We've established a criminal justice coordinating committee that's digesting those recommendations, bringing all the stakeholders together, you have to realize that this involves the sheriff, this involves the judicial criminal judges, it involves the prosecutor's office, the public defender's office. And so has that progress been slow? I would say yes, but once again, that's one of my frustrations from the private sector, that government moves very slowly. But I don't think that takes away the need for, to plan for the future and accommodate that jail expansion. And it goes back to being a collaborator. There's things in our jail and our justice system that are aggravated at the state level that we need to work with our state stakeholders and make sure that they're aware of. And then let me go back and touch on the first responders. I see that. We live in out in Sonora. The rural fire department out there is Nob Hill. Those gentlemen are very dedicated. I've had the honor of getting to know them, learn more about their jobs and their situations. But we see now, as people move out of our major cities like Fayetteville and Springdale, they're moving into these smaller communities. And we see major subdivisions going in to these communities that rely on those rural volunteer fire departments, and they're having a hard time catching up. How do we as a county come in, assess and address that growth, and make sure those men and women have the resources that they need to meet our needs as citizens? And I think, once again, you have to measure it, you have to bring in the stakeholders, you have to communicate the options, you have to come up with a solution, and you have to take action. And I think one of the most important things from the county level government is maybe that action is not most appropriate at the county level. And we need to come in and partner with other levels, partnership with outside agencies, partnership with non-government organizations to come in and come up with the best solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question would be, where do you see, after you've completed your first term, where do you see this district, what do you see this county looking like at the end of the next 4 years?
Well, I mean, we're definitely going to see a major population growth. We had last week Tyson announcing they're going to bring back people to the home headquarters. That's only going to fuel that growth. And so I think you see continued growth in our major cities such as Fayetteville and Springdale, but of course, we've already seen it in these other communities. I call them now small cities, and I use air quotes very purposefully because they're small now, but I think they're going to deal with large population growth and the needs and the challenges that the cities have seen. What I see for us, if I had to get my agenda passed, and what I want us to do is I want us to have long-term solutions so that we're not only planning for tomorrow, but we're planning for 5, 10, 20 years down the way. So I want to do some strategic planning for the county to put that in process. And then in that way, we can have a playbook for the new leaders that come after us. And we don't want to bind future generations to what we see, or future quorum courts, or future judges' administrations. But what I want them to have is a playbook. This is where we saw things. This is the recipe we put in to address the criminal justice system, to address the first responders, to address making county more efficient. And then they can build upon that so that they have a framework to move forward with. I think there's a lot of institutional knowledge, especially on the quorum court, lost every 2 years. When we have new faces, we're going to have a lot of new faces on the quorum court this next term, inevitably, no matter how the elections go. And so all that's going to be extremely important so that we can see where the growth's going. So I hope Washington County is open for business. I hope we see a lot of growth in the business community and the jobs community. And I also hope that we can accommodate all the infrastructure that we are going to have coming our way. Thank you.
Mr. Moody, the same question. After your term, what do you see? What do you see Washington County looking like at the conclusion of that term?
I'm hoping to turn Washington County into Green Mountain. Let me explain that. It's absolutely going to grow. Larry Fink, who's CEO of BlackRock Investments, which is a multi-trillion-dollar asset management company, so he knows a little bit about business and money. He has said that the next 1,000 billion-dollar companies are not going to be in digital, they're not going to be in media, they're going to be in green hydrogen, green agriculture, green steel, green concrete, green. Not only environmentally conscious, but green. Let's make some money. Billion-dollar companies. I would love to make, you've heard of Silicon Valley, I would love to make Washington County Green Mountain, right here in between the Boston and the Ozarks. Let's make Washington County Green Mountains. You know, Arkansas is the natural state. Before that was known as the land of opportunity, and I say, why not both? right? So yes, we will grow. And I'm very convinced that with the growth, which as many of us know, and it was touched on, Tyson's bringing people back. It's a lot of corporate jobs. So kind of going back to the safety issue, we're recruiting corporate people here. With population growth, violent crime has remained steady and level. It has remained flat over the last several years. There's no reason to believe that just because the population is growing, it's becoming more dangerous. Speaking of green, though, I do have a couple of green initiatives. I think the government can be a leader in leading in climate resilience. One of those things I hope to implement is, in my first term, a reduction of 90% of the use of single-use plastics within county departments. I think that's a small step in the right direction, but I think it would speak volumes to the companies and the individuals that live and operate here. I think that we could find greener fleets for our vehicles as we replace them. I think things like that. I'm excited for our future. I mean, everybody knows that Northwest Arkansas is the place to be. We've been hearing this, and we've been seeing the fruits of that for some time now. In fact, some of us want to start whispering that, right? Because we're like, all right. Northwest Arkansas is resource-rich but coordination-poor. And I have talked to many other entities, nonprofits, cities, schools, and I'm talking about rural cities, rural schools here in the county. Everybody that I have talked to is excited about the prospect of coordinating some of these efforts, streamlining some efforts. Let's make it more efficient. Let's cut down on some of the siloed efforts. And if we work together, I'm not saying the county is going to take it all over, because we don't need to. The services are already there. But if we can kind of bring some groups together, I think that saves effort. That makes it more efficient. And so I'm excited about the prospect of doing that. And speaking of just one basic example, I've heard from rural school districts, superintendents telling me that the county roads where their school buses go are becoming less safe in recent years. That's a problem. I want to correct that, because the safety of our kids is all of our top priority. And getting them to school safely should be at the top of that list. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Moody, do you support and will you support regional cooperation among the cities? And if you do, will you support also regional economic development programs to promote that growth?
Perfect timing. I think I just touched on that. I would be delighted to work with the cities, and the cities are ready to work with me, both big and small. And again, with the whole Green Mountain agenda, I think that we've tied that together. I'm trying to think of things that I can add to that, because I definitely want to take advantage of the 3 minutes I have. Could you repeat the question?
Yes.
Just to make sure
Do you and will you support regional cooperation among the cities? And do you and will you support regional economic development programs among those cities to promote growth of business, attract new business, and promote innovation?
Yes. I'm just going to say yes, and I think I kind of touched on most of that earlier, but I think that the more we work together as entities, as separate and individual entities, the more attraction we can bring to outside investors, outside companies that might want to relocate here. As we know, Northwest Arkansas is full of entrepreneurs. Let's open up that development. And we just had a seed summit here this week, I believe, here at the library, full of people working on entrepreneurial activities. And I want to feed that. I want there to be more jobs created here, more high-paying, well-paying jobs, more skilled jobs, more things that's going to make it great to live for everybody. I think that with the growth we're dealing with, there are certainly problems that come along with that, but I certainly want to do the best we can to work with any entity who's interested in working with us, which, like I've said, is many and most, that wants to focus those efforts on making Washington County a better community for all of us. I'll just cut that one short because I feel like I already touched this one.
Thank you, Mr. Moody. Mr. Deakins, do you and will you support regional cooperation among the cities of Washington County? And do you and will you support regional economic development programs to promote growth of existing businesses, attract new businesses, and promote innovation?
Absolutely. And I think when we are looking at ourselves now in this Northwest Arkansas region, I use that term a lot, but we see it ourselves on the I-49 corridor where there used to be separation between these cities. You drive 49 now and it's just one constant city. And so I think it's going to be critically important, and it goes back to that collaboration that we have with other elected officials and other areas around the county, other municipalities and stuff, that we look at the issues first from a regional perspective. And I think that so many of our growing pains and things that are going to come this way, we might have a solution that comes first from a regional perspective. And I've talked with counterparts in Benton County and things like that, to where some of these challenges, when we grow things like the jail, solid waste is going to become an issue in this area in the very near future. And we're even talking about water infrastructure, road infrastructure. It would only make sense that we would coordinate with our counterparts in other areas. And it's not even just Benton and Washington County. It's Crawford County, Madison County, all of our neighboring counties that want to be a part of this region and help us economically grow. So, yes, I would. My philosophy on the business community is we want to do our jobs as government the most efficient as we can, make the fertile soil for the businesses to come in and plant themselves in and be prosperous in this area, and I think that's government's role. Once again, that requires coordination so that we're all pulling the cart in the same direction. I see it sometimes where we'll pave a road or vice versa up to the Benton County line, and then at the county line it's not paved. Well, I think if through some good communication we could have that road paved, and that makes more sense all the way through the region to help out on both sides of that line. And so, yeah, I'm always going to have an open door to both regional planners, but also my stakeholders at the municipal levels. I want to work with all the municipalities and their mayors and their leadership to make sure that, once again, the county is doing its part to fuel the growth and the prosperity in the cities. The county, to my outlook, has a limited set of skills that it needs to be very good at. And that's what I want to focus on, so that the cities can focus on what they're very good at. And I think that all happens through regional planning and planning with our other counterparts.
Thank you, Mr. Deakins. Mr. Deakins, do you and will you support funding for public transportation, either Ozarks Regional Transit or other means?
I support the public transportation to the extent that the cities want to support that. I very much view that as a municipal issue, and I have on the Quorum Court ever since I've been tenured there. It's been come up very, very many times where when you have a constituency that's mostly in a rural district, and you're asking them for tax dollars for a service that will serve the municipalities, that's a tough sell to those people out there in those rural districts. So as a county judge, what I want to do, once again, is I want to be fiscally transparent on our end. I want to bring accountability to the way we're spending tax dollars. And so that gives the cities the comfort level that the county is going to meet its obligations and its responsibilities, roads, jail, the administration of the courts, those types of things, to where they have the flexibility and the ability to do the things that they see are most appropriate for their jurisdictions. And I think that's the most important role that a county judge can play, is ensuring that those services and those commitments are being met. Thank you.
Mr. Moody, do you and will you support funding for public transportation, whether it's Ozark Regional Transit or some other form?
Absolutely, and I've met with ORT multiple times, and I've met with NWA Planning Council and these other regional planners. I think it's important, especially if we aspire to be the metropolis that a lot of us would like to be. Public transportation it's got to be up there. In fact, my wife, again, who's from New York, she was very frustrated about the missed opportunity when we expanded I-49, why there's not a light rail running through there. That would have been a great opportunity. Now, having said that, we don't have to do a light rail. We already have a heavy rail. Now, why are we not using that more for passengers? I think that would make transport easier. It would lighten congestion loads along I-49 and all the other arteries running through northwest Arkansas, because, yes, we all do bleed together. It's hard to tell one town from the next, which is it's a nice thing, because we see ourselves as regionally. At the same time, our reliance on vehicles has gotten to where it frustrates all of us in a lot of ways. And it would be nice to be able to, hey, you know what? I live in Fayetteville, but I'd like to go to Crystal Bridges or the Momentary for a show or something like that. It would be great to just hop on something and get up there and then easily get back down. But nobody's going to, as we know, public transportation is not very well used. And it's not because it's a bad product or program. It's because it's not what's the word? You can't. It doesn't show. It's not reliable. It's not as reliable as we'd like it to be. In that, you know what? It's not coming around every 15 minutes. It's every hour or so. So you have to plan around that accordingly. And if it's not convenient for people who are able to drive, then they're just going to drive. So if we make it more convenient for people, where it's just as easy for you to hop on a train or hop on a bus to get somewhere, people will utilize that. And they'll be, hey, I can read my book, I can listen to a podcast, I can do my work on my way somewhere, whatever. It opens up your life a lot easier. It improves your quality of life if we are able to invest in public transportation the way it should be, the way it is in most large metropolises. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moody, have you made any pledges to any political group regarding revenue, taxes, or programs?
No. And I guess because I do have some time, I'll elaborate on that. I have not promised anybody anything. The only thing I promise is that I will look out, is this best for the county as a whole? Any decision I make, any large or small decision I make, and I will impress upon that to everyone who will be working in the departments that I will oversee, I will impress upon them, any choice you make throughout your day, week, month, is this what's best for the county as a whole? That's got to be the focus. I don't fancy myself a politician. I fancy myself a public servant. I've been in public service most of my career. I come by it very honestly. I want to help people. If I had to use one word to describe myself, it's helper. There are plenty of people in Washington County who already have everything they need, and that's great. That's wonderful. As I mentioned, I want to bring more opportunities here. There are people that don't. So I guess the one pledge and promise I will make is I will always consider everyone in the county. I will always consider, is this entity being a good neighbor? Are we enforcing the regulations that we already have in place? And if not, and that's leading to bad neighborship or neighborhood or neighborly policies, then that's a problem. And so that needs to be corrected. I have seen over the course of this year that there are entities, companies, who are not being a good neighbor. And there are houses and families suffering because of it. That's concerning to me. So I will not make a promise to any political action committee. I have not received money from any political action committee, and I don't plan to in these closing days. And I can promise you the era of personal favors and the era of good old boy systems will end on my first day, because I owe it to every one of you out there and everyone listening at home, that promise. Thank you.
Mr. Deakins, have you made any pledges to any political group regarding revenue, taxes, or programs?
Absolutely not. And I think there's a very negative connotation to that question. And I feel obligated to kind of clear the air on that in terms of I have never been approached by a group, entity, PAC, or individual that has asked me for anything in exchange for a contribution for my service on the quorum court, on the county judge. So, I don't want the voters to get the idea that this is somehow the Wild West and everything's for sale. Personally, that's not been my experience, and nobody has ever approached me to do anything like that. In fact, it's quite the opposite. When somebody approaches me and asks me about our campaign that me and my family are running, they want to get to know us as individuals, and they want to know what our vision for Washington County is, what our priorities are, but most importantly, they leave us with this: please be open, transparent, and please be obligated to the taxpayers and the citizens of Washington County and do what's best for everyone. And I want to use a particular example in all this. We have a planning and zoning process in the county that I consider broken by my experience on the quorum court. It's very arbitrary on the way we're applying the rules in zoning. Its very premise is that we're creating this patchwork, this quilt work of zoning outside in the county that's very problematic, I believe, for developers and business leaders and entrepreneurs that want to come here and do different things with the county. When I first started this campaign, I was going around to stakeholders, and I talked to some developers that are very heavily involved in both Benton and Washington County and very heavily involved in our community. And they told me, they said, Patrick, if we had absolutely similar projects to do, same sites, same economics, but we had to go to Benton or Washington County, we're going to go to Benton County every time. And that is a huge problem for us as we want to progress as a county and have the jobs and the support here in Washington County and keep up with our neighbors. And so what they impressed upon me at that point, they said, Patrick, and this is specifically to the zoning and the permitting, they said, we want the rules. Please give us the rules. We're not here to lobby the rules. We just want the rules that we are supposed to be and expected to adhere to, and we want those to be clear, concise, and fair all across the board. And then that will help spur the business community in Washington County. That's what I'm committed to in that particular example, but I'm committed to it in everything that we do. My wife uses the term servant leadership all the time in our home and impresses that upon me and our boys, and that's what we're here to do. That's what we're committed to do for Washington County. Open, transparent, fair. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Deakins. Last question before closing. Mr. Deakins, describe your plans on communicating important issues to the residents of Washington County.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have incredible tools now with social media. I know it can be as much of a burr in our saddle as it is an asset. But, you know, we continue to have to push things out on social media and grow that response. I don't think we have a very robust social media program right now in the county. You know, one of the positions that I've always thought the county might need is a communications director. When I'm elected, I'm going to seek that position out because I think there have been so many, and of course the pandemic only highlighted this. There's so much public information that needs to be pushed out and consumed by the public. And I think we need a person that can make our communications from the county concise, push that out, make sure it's getting to where it needs to be. And we have to embrace, we have a very robust and involved local media here. And we have to embrace those individuals and bring them in and communicate with them so that they can help push those messages out to the public so people are getting very timely information. And so I think that's a weakness right now. We want to be very proactive in communicating when we're the next Washington County judge to make sure people know what's coming, what the challenges are, because I think inevitably you're going to get some benefit back from that. People are going to communicate to you. You know, I've had so many conversations where people are like, oh, I didn't know the county was having a trouble with that. I know this person or that person, and that's going to help with that collaboration and bringing things together to work on problems as a team. And so that, number one, would be, that's my public plan for public communication. The other thing is I always want people to know who their Washington County judge is. I want to be very approachable. I want to be in the community. You know, you won't hear more of the truth than if you go around to these smaller communities and go have breakfast at the local coffee shop. You get an earful, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, from those areas. And I want people to know their county judge. I want the government, the county government, to be very approachable, and so that we can accommodate their concerns and try to address their needs. And so that's how I want to approach that on an individual level. My phone line will always be open. The judge's door will always be open to anybody who wants to come, communicate, share their thoughts and concerns. Thank you.
Mr. Moody, describe your plans on how you would communicate important issues to the residents of Washington County.
A lot of things come up. First of all, I want to point out to any nonprofits that might be hurting for money. The county does have money available right now that you can apply for by the end of this month. October 31st is the deadline. That's one thing that's not been communicated very well by the county. It's not been put out on social media or anything. There's not been a press release put out. There's been nothing put out about that. That's a concern of mine because there are a couple of $1 million, 2.3 earmarked for the community nonprofits. I will have an open door policy with my staff, with the people of the county. I want to be available, and I want to be emphatic in saying that when you reach out to me, I will respond. Not when I want to, not when it's an easy response, not when it's an easy question. I will respond. I will be available. This whole year, and I started this campaign in January, and I was still teaching back in the spring. This whole year, I've been out in the community with in every opportunity I can. I've been to so many events I've lost count. Sometimes I'll have 4 events in the same night, and so I've created 4 of me so that I could make all of them. I have an open door policy. Anybody that wants to come to me in the courthouse, but more importantly, I'll come to you. I've been doing that all year. I won't just do that as a candidate. I will do that as your next county judge. I have plans to be out in every JP district regularly. About once a week, I'll be in a different district. I want to hear from you if you have concerns. I haven't told the JPs about this yet. I'm hoping they'll be there too. Call it Moody Monday, or we'll figure something out. But whatever, I'll be there. I want to hear from you. And I will respond. And the thing I want to emphasize too, if you come to me with a concern, I will connect you with whoever can help you through that. And if that person has not resolved or is not working on your issue, and I don't hear back from them, I want to hear back from you within a week. I want to know if you're not happy or satisfied with the way it's worked or the way it's been handled, come back to me, because ultimately it falls on me to make sure that all residents of Washington County are served in the way they feel they should be. There are so many issues I've heard about. And I'm not running against any current administration at the same time. And the current county judge, very nice guy, very likable. If you're in the room with him, he's going to make you feel like you're the most important person in the world. And I've had great dealings with him. At the same time, with the current administration, there's been a lot of lack of follow-up and follow-through. And I promise to you that that will not be the case under my administration. I will lead by example. And ultimately, the buck will stop with me. I'm hoping to put things out in the newspaper, on the news. As much as they'll let me put out there, I promise you I'm going to have an open door policy and everything's going to be transparent. There's not going to be guessing games. There's been cybersecurity issues, and I know I'm running short. Cybersecurity, did you know about it? Yeah, most people didn't. That wouldn't happen under me. Thank you.
For your closing statement, Mr. Moody?
Again, I'd like to thank you all for being here. Thank you to our host. Thank you to my opponent. I think we've had a good conversation. I hope you've learned a lot. ChangeTheMood.us if you'd like to learn more. I believe my email is definitely on there. Social media is on there. You can find me. I will not hide. I do not plan on sitting in the 5th floor of the courthouse very often. I plan on being out in the community. I plan on talking to you. I've been doing so all year long, and I promise to continue doing so as your next county judge. I guess just to reiterate, I'm Josh Moody, lifelong Arkansan. I've lived in every part of the state, though, and I think in that time I've developed a lot of empathy for all walks of life. My 14-year teaching career was spent, the vast majority of that time was in free and reduced lunch, high minority populations. In other words, I've worked in a lot of poverty situations. And we have a lot of that here, despite all the growth and the smiles and the good things happening. And we have an opportunity here. We have a golden opportunity that doesn't come around all the time. This might be a generational opportunity to invest in some of those and reduce some of those gaps. I'm the person to do that. I do have a business background. As I like to put it to people, I have a heart for service and a mind for business. I like numbers. At one time, I considered becoming an accountant. I do like numbers. Numbers interest me. I like people more, as it turns out. So my wife is in the corporate world. I heard her yesterday talk about a customer journey, the customer's journey. She's in a partner management position. Whether it's government, whether it's businesses, it's all about building relationships. It's all about working together. It's all about allowing access and opportunity. Little did I know, I've been preparing for this role my whole life. If you would have asked me what a county judge was 5 years ago, I may have been a little shaky on answering that question. And most people are confused about, just real quick, to that point, I will lobby the state of Arkansas to change the county judge title and the justice of the peace title, because those are both very needlessly complicated things. For anybody that's heard this so far, county judge is the chief executive officer of the county government, think mayor of the county. I just want to be explicit in that because that actually hasn't been covered. What is a county judge? I'm Josh Moody. I would be honored to have your vote. Early voting starts October 24th, which is a week from Monday. Election day is November 8th. The polling times and locations for early voting and for Election Day are on our website, which again is changethemood.us. Reach out to me now, reach out to me later. I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Deakins, your closing statement.
Thanks, sir. I just want to take one more moment to thank everybody that came out here today, everybody watching, everybody investing some of their time into learning more about their local candidates. We have push cards on the back table back there. I invite every one of you to take one, please. It tells a little bit more about my family, has our email and phone number on it. We want you to reach out if there's anything that we can do to help you make your decision. We have an amazing opportunity over the next few years in Washington County, and I'm dedicated and experienced enough to try to make us reach our full potential, and I think that's incredibly important. What I'm asking each and every voter of Washington County to do is get off social media, find some neutral sources, investigate your candidates, and vote who you think will best manage the county. You don't have to look very far on social media to see the acrimony that has crept into our local government, and it's not productive. The one thing I can say is we're probably never going to disagree on 100% of things in this county, but we can work together, we can build consensus, and we can pursue those objectives that are most beneficial for all of us. That's very obtainable. We don't have to have the national acrimony and the partisanship that we see at that level. We can do it right here in Washington County, and I'm absolutely 100% committed to that. We have to get broad perspectives, and we have to achieve the things that are obtainable for us. And finally, I mentioned it earlier, I have the support of my family in this. We come at this as a family. And you should know as taxpayers and voters that every night I come home and face those little boys and my wife, and I have to make sure and reconcile that I've done the best job I can for our county. And I will continue to do that absolutely every night in this next term. We can do it. We have to do it through servant leadership, and we have to work together to do it. I'm committed to that, and we would love to earn your vote in this election. Thank you, sir.
On behalf of the Fayetteville Chamber, we want to thank you both for giving your time. We want to thank all of you for coming out. Let's give these candidates a round of applause. Good job.
Good job. Thank you. I appreciate you, sir.
All right, thumbs up. Here we go. Welcome to this second forum of the Fayetteville Chamber of Commerce. We're hosting for candidates for various offices. This forum is hosted for the purpose of the candidates running for state representative. We were expecting two candidates. State Representative David Whitaker is here. Brian Hester, the challenger, is not here. If he comes later, we'll let him join us, but we're not going to wait to start this process. So I should let you know that this presentation is being recorded. It's being broadcast live on Facebook presently. That recording will be available both at the library hosted website and also at the Fayetteville Chamber hosted website. We're trying to make certain that candidates get heard by our community about their views and answer community questions. If you have questions that were not answered today and you would like to have those posed, or questions that were not asked today that you thought might be a good question to ask, please submit those to Taylor Shelton of our team. His email is tshelton@FayettevilleAR.com. That's the chamber email address. I should tell you that each forum is scheduled to last an hour. Every candidate will have an opening statement of 5 minutes. They'll be able to end with a closing statement of 3 minutes. What we're trying to do now is get this set up so that everybody who wants to join us can. We're thrilled to have David Whitaker with us today. Many of you know him. He's been our state representative now for 5 terms. So he's a pretty familiar face in Washington County, and more particularly in the city of Fayetteville. Mr. Whitaker, I want to welcome you for being here, and we're going to get started. I will tell you that in the event that Mr. Hester joins us later, we'll do the questioning alternating with the first question and then back and forth, and so you'll answer 2 questions in a row and then it'll be switched back over. So the first question to you: why did you decide to run again for this position?
Well, thank you, Steve. First of all, I'd like to thank you.
Let's let you make opening statement. That'd be more fair. I'm sorry. Let's let you make opening statement.
Quite all right.
I've known David a long time, and I just assumed I knew what he would say. That's not fair. That's not fair. Shame on me. All right. Why don't you make opening statement for 5 minutes, would you?
Thank you, Steve. And I want to thank the Fayetteville Chamber of Commerce for reviving the forums that we all had to forego during the last cycle. And it's good to be back face to face with you guys. You know, people in business kind of understand a concept called a performance review. And that's what this is for me. Every 2 years, you get to do a performance review. I think you can be happy with where I am and what I've done in the 10 years you've entrusted me with this office. I have been blessed not only to have incredibly good and faithful supporters, but incredible colleagues on both sides of the aisle, that over the last decade we've been able to do things for Northwest Arkansas and do it without worrying about partisan ideology or allowing the personal and political beliefs to get in the way of doing what was right for the people of this region. District 22 is in the heart of the 49 corridor. Just real quickly, I won't bore you with the whole map, but important to commerce and transportation is the fact that a stretch from roughly exit 60 up to nearly 67 is encompassed by District 22. Tied into that is my long-term service on the House Public Transportation Committee. If reelected, I will be one of the most senior members on that committee. And in the decade that I've served there, I've learned incredible things about not only highways, but transit. Where we are, it is so important that our roads, our rail, our buses work together in a regional process. The other thing I've been blessed with is an incredibly close relationship with the University of Arkansas. I'm a proud graduate of the law school back in 1999. My dear wife, Lisa, who's with us today, is a graduate of UAMS, and my youngest daughter, Olivia, sitting next to her, is the proud holder of 3 degrees from the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville. We live mere steps from the campus. The incredible working relationship with chancellors, vice chancellors, department heads, faculty, staff, and indeed many of the students is a huge part of what I do. The eastern boundary of the new district runs right down Garland. And includes the chancellor's office now. I ribbed him about it the other day. I said, now I got to answer to you, I guess. That's been helped by the fact that the chair of the Arkansas Legislative Council, who is a longtime majority party member, and the speaker, who is also a majority party member, selected me to be the House co-chair of higher education for the entire state. And I've worked with chancellors and presidents of all of our major public institutions, and I'm just thrilled to be able to do it for you because we're doing a lot now, not just on the traditional aspects of higher ed, but the renewed emphasis on applied technology, bringing it to the marketplace and creating good jobs in Arkansas so that our kids don't have to move away to Dallas or Kansas City or any other place to find good work that pays well. I'd be remiss if I didn't speak about 30 seconds. We'll wrap up with the other half of our agenda this year in the Subcommittee on Higher Education has been reinvigorating and reinventing the workforce education in this state, which is hugely important because having job openings isn't enough if you don't have qualified people to fill them.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So questions now. You've got 3 minutes to answer. So why did you decide to run for re-election?
It was real easy. I'm excited about where we are. I mentioned some of the things of where we've come from in my opening, but we're also on the verge of incredible stuff. I mean, you know as well as I do the crazy, wonderful things that are happening here. The multi-million-dollar semiconductor grant we got at the university, where we're actually building a manufacturing facility for advanced semiconductors. The fact that we are the hub of the governor's new emphasis on advanced mobility. The University of Arkansas will be the place where advanced mobility research and transitioning it to market will happen. This is exciting stuff. Our rapid growth presents challenges, but I think we're also at an inflection point in the history of Northwest Arkansas where I think we can turn all of those challenges into opportunities. I'm not ready to quit working for District 22 or for the cities of Farmington and Fayetteville, which has been an incredibly rewarding part of this job.
Thank you. All right, your second question would be, what is your style of leadership?
I've always thought, when I was younger that, there were leaders and then there were not leaders. I have, over the course of my life, benefited from things that I've learned along the way. 6 years in the United States Air Force, attaining the rank of Staff Sergeant. As a non-commissioned officer, I learned that leadership wasn't always something you were born with. that indeed sometimes gut decision-making in leadership can cause people to be less confident about their future and less confident about your leadership. I have, over the years, evolved to more of a participatory leader, one that loves to share ideas with people, but then let them run with them, give them the resources to do what they can, because I'm stunned constantly by the incredible talent of the people I meet and who we work with on a nearly daily basis. So yeah, I believe in a team approach, but acknowledging the fact that every team has to have a boss. In my case, as one of 100 members of the Arkansas House of Representatives, the boss are the people that live and vote in House District 22.
Thank you. Next question is, describe your experience in working with the communities of Fayetteville and Farmington.
Well, thank you for that. That's a softball. Because I got to tell you, it's been a joy. We have two of the most incredible little communities in the world. And I know we can't, it's hard, when you look at the numbers on Fayetteville now, to just call it a small town, because we're not. Frankly, when we saw the census numbers soar past 90,000, and suddenly the speculation for years of when we would be the second largest city in Arkansas was no longer speculation, it was a fact. And then you have a wonderful community of Farmington. When I was first elected a decade ago, there were slightly more than 5,000 people in the entire town. The library at the time was actually being run out of the old fire station, which was more like a converted barn than a fire station. And thankfully, to the help of retired Senator Uvalde Lindsay and I, were able to fund the furnishings and equipment for the new library that's in the old, across from the post office now. And that's been wonderful to see that prosper. I mean, I love libraries. I'm thrilled we use this place, because it's an expression of what the wise and disciplined use of the taxing authority can do to improve the lives of our citizens. Farmington and Fayetteville, hey, I hit the jackpot on public schools. I sit in the chamber in Little Rock, and I hear the sad stories, they're all true, of the difficulties that so many of the districts throughout the state deal with. And I count myself blessed that I've got two of the very best school districts, not only in Arkansas, but in the world. We've been able to work with them and improve their ability to carry out their mission to our children, support, pay raises for teachers and support staff, because we often overlook support staff who work ridiculously long hours for very little pay. I'm committed to making sure that that's remedied. Everybody that I've worked with, we're not necessarily of the same political persuasion on all subjects, but boy, it's inspiring to me that we can set all that aside and get things done, like, hey, RDOT needs to get this project finished because it's right next to, one of the main intersections in town. Could you give them a call? And the ability to be able to, that they know that they can call and ask for these things. So yeah, I think it's wonderful, and I have no intention of slowing down on that side of my job.
Thank you. Your next question would be, what do you believe to be the largest challenges facing this district in the coming 24 months? Well,
I will give you, assert my belief that District 22 is a perfect microcosm of the difficulties that the entire Northwest Arkansas region is facing. We know that we have a ridiculously difficult housing situation in Northwest Arkansas. Not only are the prices is the price of housing soaring out of reach for many families, but I think when we saw the Skyline report recently, which is the annual report on residential housing market in Northwest Arkansas. I think we all kind of knew that there was bad news out there, but when we saw a 27% increase 1 year over 1 year, and for me, one of the more chilling problems was the subtitle of the executive summary that said apartment availability at virtually zero. We cannot build apartments fast enough. This is complex, but a part of that is obviously if you can't afford to buy a house, you're going to be in the rental market. Unfortunately, we're now in a position where many of those same people can't afford to be in the rental market. And that sounds like, oh, that's a housing issue, but it's not a standalone problem. I tell you, if we create this incredibly great jobs mecca that everybody says they want, we got to have places for people to live. It's going to be an impediment to economic growth in this region. It's one of the things that, was a stumbling block for Austin, Texas in their pursuit of a better economy. I do bring you good news. If you're not aware, the Northwest Arkansas Council has hired a person dedicated to attacking, analyzing, and providing solutions to this housing thing because they get it. They see that if we don't have decent places for people to live, all the great jobs in the world will not do us any good. The other thing, and I may address this in later questions, but in my district in particular, the traffic problems that we're having to try to resolve in every one of those east-west crossings of I-49. That's a longer discussion than right now, but those two, I believe, are incredibly important, and I look forward to continue working on them.
Thank you. When your term ends in 24 months, what do you see as maybe the improvements in your district, and do you have any personal goals for those improvements?
24 months, as you know, can go by very quickly, but it's also one of those things that the kinds of change we seek may not all be done in 24 months. I am happy to say that the interchange improvements at Weddington should be done within the next 24 months. Those of you that frequent that area will notice that the motor grader work has begun after nearly a year and a half of what I thought was incredibly delicate infrastructure relocation that did not disrupt traffic flow to a measurable extent. Obviously, there'll be some of that when we get to, now that the motor graders are going to be making new lanes, new flyovers, and redirecting bulk of traffic. We're in the final design stages on the exit 62/US 62 improvements. What I'm seeing is incredibly hopeful, and I hope in 24 months we're actually to the point where we can have the motor graders out there too, because that's going to do some really incredible stuff. One of the reasons that particular interchange improvement was delayed was the city of Fayetteville and other regional players wanted the design to really have a robust inclusion of foot and bicycle traffic and other microtransit, think scooters, think electric bikes, et cetera. But as we went along, the original plan had nothing like that in there. Good luck trying to get across there risking your own life. As the planning went along, it turns out by the amount of vehicular traffic that was going to be multiplied and will continue to multiply at the 62 interchange, they've added in a concept of a joint interchange whereby there will be a new overpass for bikes and foot traffic at 15th Street, basically an exit 61. The on and off ramp for vehicular traffic will simply come and be a common on-ramp with 62. So they'll go on to basically the service road there and merge and enter the interstate with the Highway 62 traffic. So what we're able to do is separate all that vehicular and pedestrian traffic from the vehicle traffic. Those are two of the things that I really hope to see done because it's the most common complaint I get.
Okay. Do you support funding for public transportation, whether that be Ozarks Regional Transit or some other form?
Yes. It needs to be all of the above approach. Nearly a decade on the Standing Committee on Public Transportation, I can tell you that there are no magic formulas. Building light rail or even indeed, okay, real quick teaching moment. Light rail is a dedicated line where you build specifically a track for a specific train that runs independent of your other rail traffic. Very expensive. They can be very nice if you got the money. I mean, the one in Denver is beautiful, but not immediately doable without massive amounts of money. The other, we use the term of art is commuter rail, where you use existing rail lines and a different kind of rolling stock or cars and motive engines for it. That's a good bridge because that can get you some rail service on an existing line. Now, it will require upgrading rights of way and working out use agreements with the current owners and users of the right of way. In this case, the Arkansas and Missouri Railroad for Northwest Arkansas. But it also needs to be part of an overall state transit plan. I mean, because there's limited value in just having Bentonville to Fayetteville. And you can guess why. I mean, simply, you want to be part of a network. And transportation works best in a network. Ozark Regional Transit is doing good work, but I think I'm also gratified to hear that they are evolving and understanding that simply posting a fixed schedule for large passenger number buses that run always is not the best model anymore. I mean, we're learning a lot with technology and from nearly a decade of seeing Uber and Lyft and things like that work to where transit authorities are also beginning to adopt the transit on demand. It's like, I got a bunch of people who need to go out to a family reunion and we don't want 16 cars to go. Can y'all come get us in a 16 passenger van? Boom. Just like you would, just on an app, just like you would with Uber or Lyft or any of the others. So yes, we've got to do it. The fact is we can only widen the interstate so far.
30 seconds.
And then we run into what regional planners always have called induced demand. You add another lane and 6 people decide to drive in instead to take the bus. And so within a week, your lane is full, and you have to spend another few million to make another lane. At some point, that's not the answer, but it has to be, an all of the above integrated plan.
Thank you. Do you believe and would you support regional cooperation among the cities? And do you believe that regional cooperation can be beneficial for economic development, both to promote growth of existing businesses, attract new businesses, and promote innovation?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know how you bring this region forward with anything but a cooperative regional approach. Does that mean one size fits all? Does that mean that every community within the region has to be a boring carbon copy of each other? No, I think one of the beauties of this and one of the challenges you can turn into an opportunity is that each of our cities and communities up and down the corridor have different talents and different qualities that all of which attract different people's tastes and likes. I think we can build upon that, but I don't know how you do. To me, it's essential. We have to work with each other because, as you've heard, they're just lines on paper now. With the growth of the last 20 years, we literally are in one. If you are on the corridor or within 10 minutes of it, you are in one community where, unless you see a sign, you don't know when you cross from one town to another. my district is a huge example of it. I've got people who, you know, on one side of the street, they live in Farmington, and on the other side, they live in Fayetteville, and you can't tell the difference walking down the street. But it makes a difference. If those two cities aren't cooperating, how does anybody in that neighborhood know how anything works, or how do they keep their lives in order? We're lucky. We've got, you know, my experience has been the leaders that I've dealt with have bought into this already too. Because I don't see us going forward as, you know, little individual armed camps that do whatever they please. Will there be differences? Sure. But, you know, I always believed in the old idea that you get a good thesis and you get an antithesis and you come up with a great synthesis.
Thank you. Have you made any pledges to any political group, political action committee, or other entity regarding revenue, taxes, or programs?
No. I remember the origin of these questions because for the longest time, and certainly early in my political career, we had one or two groups, particularly like the Tax Foundation and some of the others, who, and I guess Grover Norquist had a no tax pledge. I've never signed anything like that. I wouldn't sign something from his opponent, you know, from the opposing viewpoint, because the only pledge I make is the people I represent, and that's who I'm going to work with every day. And I know, and I'm going to cheat a little bit here, because I know during the break there was a question, there was a suggestion that you modify that question to include, do you take PAC money? And I'm going to tell you that I do, because I'm going to tell you what you need to know about specifically about what PACs are and what they're not. There are PACs and then there are PACs. In Arkansas, it's almost literally illegal to take corporate PAC money. So if a corporation takes corporate money, or even any business entity after we did the ethics reforms, you know, if you own the shoe shop down the street, 20 years ago, you could write me, John Brown could write me a check from his personal account, and then Brown's Shoe Shop could write me a check from the shoe shop account. Well, we got rid of that. There are PACs that are associated with corporations, but the big thing about them, and I always check this out before I accept the money, is they're employee PACs. That, like, I take money from the AT&T employees PACs. These are folks that, through their own choice, check off on their withholding every month a little portion to go to people that support telecom. Some of the utilities have employees sponsored. The Arkansas Education Association, who has endorsed me and whose work I admire and who has been a good, strong ally in helping our public schools, has a PAC. I'm not going to not take their money because they help me day to day by giving me the information I need to make informed decisions. And I'm honored to have their support. And it's the teachers who are given that money. Again, another one where employees voluntarily donate this money. I give to I'm a member of the Arkansas Bar Association. I throw a couple, $50, $60 in a year to our PAC, and I'm happy that I get money from them. So yeah, I take PAC money, but I can also tell you that the vast majority of my donors are small donors and they're individuals. I think right now my average donation is about $36. So, and you balance it. Also, you can't buy me. I don't need your money. If you're willing to keep writing checks and I keep voting against you, I'll take your money because I need it.
Thank you. Describe your plans on communicating with your constituents on very important issues during this next 24-month period.
Well, I think we push out a good bit on social media, but I will share with you frustration of how, so this, it's funny, and I'm old enough to say traditional forms of social media don't seem to be as effective as they used to be. And for a whole lot of reasons, people opt out of them, and I respect that and I understand it, but it does throw up a roadblock to communication. 6 years ago, we could put out, put out a notice on Facebook and boost the post for a couple of dollars, and everybody in town saw it. Well, not everybody in town's even on Facebook anymore, and that's a personal choice I respect. And the business model of Facebook has changed so much that unless I'm willing to send them big chunks of money for an ad, they throttle down our message. Oh, you didn't pay for an ad? Well, and no one's going to see your post. So that's frustrating. We try to talk to anybody. We've always been wide open to the professional press. I'll literally take an hour and just talk with the young people at the Arkansas Traveler. I mean, literally anywhere. We put out press releases. They're not always picked up. We try to use community bulletin boards the most we can. I have a old-fashioned thing, really low-tech, that I discovered works pretty well too, is I have these business cards, and on them is the phone number to this phone right here. It doesn't go to a gatekeeper. It doesn't go to Little Rock. It often goes to an answering machine if you're calling, because I've got it turned down. I'm in a meeting or visiting with another constituent. But texting, folks, text me, because I can get it anytime then, and I can respond almost instantly, if nothing more than to say, in a meeting, get back within a few minutes. But I'm going to leave the stack out there. If you need one, you can always have it. That number is also on the Arkansas Legislature's website. And you can find more out about the campaign at davidforar.com. I think it's com. They change these things so often. But I can be reached, and I think we're going to continue to look for ways to get around the impediments that I mentioned earlier. But call me.
Thank you. Final question before you give your closing statement. What do you believe are your two strongest attributes as a leader?
I have over the years learned the art of listening. I wasn't really good at it when I was young, but I do recall that my late mother, rest her soul, would tell me, your ears will never get you in as much trouble as that mouth. And she was right. So it's a learned skill I've had to do, to really absorb what it is people are saying. Because, you'll find that a lot of times people will say something to you, but that's not what they're saying. And so you have to be an attuned listener. And I think one of the other good attributes I have for public service is that I am an eternal optimist. I think we can always do better. I think we can always be better. And that's why I do what I do, because I want to do my part every day to do everything I can for whoever I can to make things better. I hope that's good enough. I've enjoyed the 10 years I've been there, and I sure hope you all will send me back for 2 more.
You may make your closing statement.
Well, it will be brief. So I think we covered much of what I'd had in my notes. I'll reiterate just how excited I am about the future that awaits not just Northwest Arkansas, but House District 22 in particular. I mean, these are exciting times. Yes, there are challenges. There always are. But we have to, again, using that optimism, that feeling that we can always make things better, that we can always make ourselves better, we need to use those talents to turn challenges into opportunities. I love the fact that I have such a good relationship with our other regional leaders. I love the exciting things that are happening, like the day we got to visit with the president of Canoe, the electric vehicle manufacturer, and my joy when I found out, yes, they're going to be building a facility in Bentonville. Yes, there's going to be an even larger facility in eastern Oklahoma in cooperation with the Cherokee Nation, but Fayetteville and the University of Arkansas landed the R&D facility at the Arkansas Tech Park out on School Avenue. That's huge. That's incredible. I earlier mentioned the whole semiconductor industry. That's another huge thing. The fact that, again, we're the hub of the advanced mobility movement in this state. And that's literally flying cars, folks. It's not just, yes, it includes the little VO scooters, but it also includes air, water, you name it. If it moves, and it can be done on a micro scale, because to address what we call last mile issues, because that's where every transit plan falls down. It's like we can get you from the bus terminal to City Hall, but if you live 16 blocks away from City Hall, you're on your own. Microtransit fills that gap. If you live near the university like I do, you're going to see so many of our students don't even take their car up there anymore, and God bless them, because who wants to? It's a pain to park. It was when I was there. But I do get a lot of scooters left in my street, but I can live with that. I just throw them over in the other ditch. All kidding aside, it's an incredibly exciting time. Watching the incredible vibrant growth in a smaller community like Farmington, almost like watching a young child, one of your children grow up, because, they're lucky because they're at a point in their growth where they can say, okay, they know it's coming. It's not sneaking up on them anymore. But cooperating, with the city of Fayetteville and Prairie Grove, they are already adopting a regional water and wastewater because they had to. There was no place else to go. And we are literally on top of each other after the great annexation of the 2000s. But boy, the sky's the limits, folks. You live in an incredible place and an incredible time. And I just hope that we can become, and remain in many cases, an inclusive and welcoming community. And that's in all categories. So that when the great new job does get created, people can come here and find affordable housing and be accepted for who they are. These are all these things, these dreams we can all achieve, but we can only going to do it together. We can't do it by bad-mouthing each other or pushing extreme political agendas. And I won't ever do it. It's not my job. My job's to help y'all. I appreciate a vote. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Representative Whitaker, for giving of your time to be here today. Thank you for your willingness to serve. That's at some sacrifice. We all recognize and appreciate that sacrifice is more than just minimal, and so we certainly appreciate that. Thank you for your comments about Fayetteville and Farmington, comments about our region, and comments about the things you see for the future. You are all to be thanked for being here. It's very important in the democratic process for people to hear and then get a chance to exchange their ideas with the ideas of candidates that want to lead. I'll remind you that this program has been broadcast live on Facebook during this presentation. It has been recorded. It'll be available on both the library's website. It'll be available on the Chamber's website. So if someone says, I didn't get to make it, but I sure would like to see what they said, here's what you do. You can dial it up morning, noon, or night, and have that 35 or 40 minutes to listen to Representative David Whitaker. We regret that Brian Hester was unable to join us, but those things do happen from time to time. What we will tell you is the most important thing is for you not to fail to decide that it's important to vote. It's very, very important to vote, and it will shape the progress of what we all collectively want to do, and it will be important in shaping the process and the progress of what we want our communities to become. So thank you very much. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And we'll conclude this.
Good job, sir.